Combining satire with simulation and working-class viewpoints, a suite of games is currently exploring the causes and consequences of Britain's political and economic crises. As we will discuss in this video, you can blow Cyborg Thatcher up with a rocket launcher. That is, the video games lampooning Britain's cursed politics. Make sure you stick with me till the end of this video so you don't miss out on anything we have in store for you. The images kicked off a minor media storm. At a Labour Party conference adjacent events in September, the world transformed. Jeremy Corbyn was pictured waving an arm in front of an arcade cabinet bearing the words, "Thatcher's TechBase." The game, a modified version of 1994's famous infernal shooter Doom 2, sees players hunting down a resurrected cyborg version of the former Prime Minister in a labyrinthine fortress. Jim Purvis, the game's creator, took and later tweeted the photos and was somewhat surprised. He explained that in real life when it happened, it was so mundane and ordinary. Corbyn was just walking around picking up books and looking at stalls and talking to people, and there was this big machine making explosion noises. He wandered over and asked what the whole thing was about. The former Labour leader checked out the game for about 5 minutes, but Jim's photos made for an irresistible story. He highlighted that the tweet fell into the hands of certain political commentators, and when he woke up on Monday morning, the press was out there calling it the Maggie Demon Death game, and he thought it was a great title for it. What is there to know about Thatcher's TechBase? Thatcher's TechBase is an interactive political collage, where players explore custom-made Doom maps decorated with iconography from Thatcherite Britain, from official campaign posters and political cartoons, to more specific imagery such as the infamous cover art of the Iron Maiden single Sanctuary, which sees the band's mascot, Eddie, wielding a knife while standing over Thatcher's corpse. It's a highly condensed slideshow of the era's political tensions, and part of a suite of British satirical video games that look at Britain's political situation, and wonder when everything is so ridiculous. Is there such a thing as a reasonable response? The premise isn't meant to be taken seriously, as Purvis's Thatcher is a gun-toting undead robot after all, but the project was also partly about coming to terms with the impact of the Thatcher government's policies. It started as a joke inspired by Twitter during the pandemic. Purvis said that he just saw a random tweet where someone made a joke about if they were sent to hell, they'd spend their days wading through the place looking for Thatcher. You can literally press a button in the game to piss on Cyborg Thatcher's grave. You can punch her in the face. You can as well blow her up with a rocket launcher. There's a more immediately cathartic element to it that there isn't in film or TV. Many people are peed off by the situation they find themselves in, and the politicians leading them, and they're looking for relatively safe ways to express their frustration. Another video game work of British political commentary, Duke Smoochum 3D, is a modified version of the 1996 first-person shooter Duke Nukem 3D that veers between absurd and apocalyptic. Jacob Rees-Mogg enjoys a relaxing lie in the House of Commons when his repose is interrupted by Neil Parrish crashing through the wall in a tractor filled with pornography. In the countryside, pandemic talisman Captain Tom pulls a literal gravy train filled with piping hot Bisto, while Keir Starmer calls in an airstrike on a field of alpacas from the safety of the bake-off tent. Created by Dan Douglas, the satirical project began when news of Matt Hancock's affair broke in June last year, and the Daily Mail published a detailed floor plan of Hancock's office. Douglas said that it reminded him of a video game auto-map view, and Duke Nukem's 3D security camera feature immediately sprang to mind. He thought it would be amusing to recreate the scene within the game's engine. That was supposed to be it. One room, one clip, and hopefully a few laughs on Twitter. Douglas further stated that then he got sucked in, and things escalated. Fast forward a year, and Douglas's daft Twitter joke has evolved into a rolling chronicle of Britain's rapidly decaying social and political structures. Within its recreations of the British high street and countryside are dozens of references to the weirder extremes of the news cycle, some of which were added to the game within hours of the story's breaking. Duke Smoochum is a fascinating repository of Britain's chaotic last 12 months, just one of a suite of games trying to make sense of the UK's ongoing implosion, exploring how the country has gradually then suddenly stumbled into the myriad crises it's currently experiencing, alongside ways these problems might be fixed. Mixing satire, simulation, and working-class perspectives, they shift away from more idyllic representations of Britain seen in games such as Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, where Duke Smoochum confronts players with the results of Britain's political and economic collapse. Landlord Super explores the causes of those same problems. Set in the 1980s, it challenges players to renovate a former council house in the wake of the Thatcher government's Housing Act. Starting with little more than a brick and concrete shell, your task goes way beyond applying a lick of paint, requiring you to lay whole new floors, retile the roof, and rebuild entire walls brick by brick. Greg Primachuk, creator of Landlord Super, said that one of the big things he wanted to do with landlords shows how being able to buy your own council house was good for individuals, but the repercussions of not supplying the market with more council houses have been terrible for everyone. Landlord Super combines its bricks and mortar construction with a broader social simulation. Renovating your former council house requires money, which you can earn by finding a job at the local job center in the game's fictional town of Sheffingham. Yet, even if the job center has work available, there's no guarantee it will pay enough for you to afford the materials your gargantuan DIY project needs. Luckily, a local pub regular named Scouse Jimmy knows where to acquire those same materials for free, provided you're not above a bit of light thievery. On the manor's representation of life in the 1980s, Sheffield also inspired the town that players can travel to for work in the game, featuring high street shops where you can buy your equipment and a fully simulated pub which serves the fictional beer the game is named after. Primachuk explained that building the house and selling it gave him this perfect narrative encapsulation of the era, because it gathered up all the themes around the breaking up of working-class communities. Landlord Super isn't explicitly satirical like Duke Smoochum, but the two projects overlap in how they use the unique qualities of video games to interrogate British politics and society. Douglas admitted that video games have a great deal of freedom in how they choose to present satire. He added that something he's trying to do with Duke Smoochum is using the full array of features possible within a retro first-person shooter: level design, stage effects, wall decoration, weapons, enemies, NPCs, pickups, text prompts, dialogue, sound effects, menu screens to bombard the player simultaneously. Meanwhile, Primachuk compares his project to visit a special exhibition in an art gallery. When they host work, they're exploring a theme, down to the layout of the building. The way you experience it is all important, and he thinks games are very good at that. What other uses did Purvis put Thatcher's TechBase? Purvis never expected Thatcher's TechBase to be more than an amusing curiosity, but rather than bask in the temporary glory of social media clout, he decided to put the attention to practical use. He disclosed that he spoke to a couple of charities involved with causes related to Margaret Thatcher, like people working in the coal mining unions, tenants unions, refugee councils, Section 28, and LGBT charities. Purvis added a page to Thatcher's TechBase website, asking players who wanted to support the game to donate to the charities he contacted. Since then, Purvis has used Thatcher's TechBase to help him promote these charitable causes whenever he can. When Tennant's Brewery contacted him demanding he remove images of Tennant's lager cans in the game, he convinced the company to donate £2,000, split between the game's associated charities, in exchange for the removal. Purvis joked that they bullied Tennant's lager into paying a bunch of money to charity. For the arcade cabinet featured at the World Transformed, Purvis collaborated with the collective Art Props for Protests, donating any coins that went into the machine to living rent. Currently, British political reality regularly outdoes the most extreme absurdities of satire, but Primachuk hopes players of Landlord Super will gain a better understanding of the root causes of Britain's inflated housing market and deprived working-class communities, while Purvis hopes players of Thatcher's TechBase come away with a desire to make a difference as well as a smile on their faces. That concludes the video for today. We hope that all of this information has been beneficial to you. If you liked the content or learned something from it, please consider hitting the like button, then commenting, sharing, and subscribing if you haven't done so already. See you in the following video.